Hi guys, my name is Christine, and today I'm talking about success through failure. So, my personal definition of failure and the way that I personally see it is failure is never trying at all or giving up way too soon. So, therefore, the opposite of failure is, persistence. That's how you can become successful, right? As if you just keep on trying, if you just keep on throwing out attempt after attempt after attempt. So, for example, let's say you have a TikTok that you're trying to make go viral. You have a TikTok account. So, if you just keep on making TikToks, eventually, with time and repetition, you will get one that goes viral, that gets a lot of views, a lot of likes, and you will get there basically. And you can kind of use that to a lot of different things, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to become like some sort of social media influencer. If you just keep on throwing out attempt after attempt after attempt, you will get there eventually. You will eventually have that success that you want, and you won't fail basically, because if you keep on trying, you're never going to fail. I mean, there might be times where you make a mistake or perhaps you slip up in some way, but then you can just learn from that. But the point is that you keep on going, okay? So the next thing that I want to discuss is that you don't have to be perfect, okay? Because sometimes the reason why people never try anything or they give up too soon is because they've got high standards for themselves. And because they have such high standards, it prevents them from actually taking action because it's not perfect. Like for example, this video will probably not be perfect. But I'm still going to put it out there, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect, especially if you don't have the resources that you want to right now in order to make something look more perfect, because you might only have a mobile phone, you might only have a smartphone, for example. And you might only have a smartphone and an internet connection. So perhaps your resources are very limited. So you can't get it perfect. Like, let's say you want to start a podcast, but you don't have a studio, you don't have a nice set. And it's all because you don't have the resources. Perhaps you don't have the money to be able to create something like that. But you might have a smartphone with the like an app that can record your voice, or it might already be built into your smartphone, and that might be the way that you start your podcast. You can't just start with everything being perfect. It's something that you build as you go along. So don't worry about trying to be a perfectionist by trying to have everything in order. An example of this that I thought was really, really cool was Mel Robbins started her podcast. And her first podcast, I was sort of expecting it to be in some sort of like set or something like that. But she was in, it looked like a closet or something. And she started her first podcast doing that. And it was just her. She didn't have any guests. She was just talking to the camera and into the microphone. So you don't have to have the resources. You don't have to have like amazing things or the best equipment or whatever it is for you to do what you need to do. Just start with what you have. I have an audio recorder. It's a H4n handy recorder. And I've had this since I did film studies at university and was making films back then when I was in my early 20s. And this camera that I've got was one that was a hand-me-down. This was actually my brother's camera that he used for his photography company, right? So, this is my resources. I don't feel like I really need to change that much with these sorts of things because I feel like they're good enough. But, eventually, as, my business grows and what I'm doing starts growing, then maybe I will upgrade to having a better set instead of just doing it in my office room, things like that. I'm able to change things up a bit. But I'm using what I have. I don't have the best equipment. And I'm sure, though, this is probably a lot better than what a lot of other people start with, just because I had that filming experience and had already had a good amount of equipment that could actually produce relatively decent videos, okay? But what my point is you don't have to be perfect, okay? And it's important that you just get going and you just start, so you can start getting consistent and start, developing that muscle to stay persistent with your goals and your dreams, because people give up way too soon or they don't even try at all, and you don't want to be that person. And I'm sure you're already not if you're watching a video like this one. So The next point that I want to make is that persistence will lead to success. And I've already touched on this a little bit. So basically, if you just keep on persisting, if you just keep on trying, if you just keep on doing the things that you need to do day in and day out for a long period of time, eventually you will become successful. Okay? Now, again, sometimes you may need to tweak things along the way. You might see what's working, what's not, and then just do what is working. Sometimes that will help. But ultimately, you don't give up. You keep on trying. You keep on throwing out those attempts. So, for example, let's say you're a salesman or a saleswoman. Sometimes you might have to go through 100 calls, 100 cold calls before you get that one client. That can, help elevate you to success, or at least give you a good amount for that day. You might have to make loads of calls in order to do that. But the point is that you're persistent and you don't give up after the first couple of rejections. It's the same with, if you're trying to find a new job, just keep on sending out applications. Eventually, someone will accept your application. Now, again, things you might need to tweak, you might need to make it better, you might need to improve upon it, you may need to look up some tips on how to create a better CV that stands out a bit more from the rest of the people. But ultimately, you keep on doing it. You don't give up. You keep on sending out those applications. It's a universal law that can be applied to pretty much everything, at least, especially in terms of success. Especially if it is something that you need to do daily. Like, for example, if you're trying to become a YouTuber and you upload videos every week, or if you want to be a TikTok star and then you're doing that every week, or you want to become an author, so you keep on writing, something that you can repeat every single day. And I think that applies to a lot of different things. So the next thing I want to talk about is you can have a mediocre or weak plan, but never give up. So sometimes you might not have the best plan when you start out. You might have like a routine that you've gotten into when it comes to your work or whatever it is that you're trying to do to succeed at. And you might have to tweak things here and there. So for example, for me, this is something that happened to me very, very recently. And it kind of put me out for like a week because it was so bad. But anyway, I woke up in the middle of the night with like really bad lower back pain. Now, I've been stretching my lower back for a good couple of weeks because it was getting a bit stiff. And, because I sit at my desk quite a lot if I'm like writing emails to clients or editing YouTube videos and things like that. So my back pain, for some reason, was just horrendous and I could barely get out of bed. And I thought by stretching my back, like how I had been doing, was actually helping. And I figured out that I needed to do something different. Instead of stretching my back, I actually needed to strengthen my back. So my plan was weak, right? My plan was to stretch it because I thought that's what would help it. But I kind of had a fall, at a failure, shall we say, and realized I needed to tweak something. I'd made a mistake, like I was doing the wrong thing. And now, of course, it's okay to stretch your back. I'm not saying that this is going to work for everybody. But I found another video which helped me strengthen my back, like a tutorial. And that managed to help it. If anyone else is having lower back pain, then if you want to have a link to that video, then I'll send it to you. Just write down in the comments if you're experiencing this sort of thing. But I realized that instead of stretching my back, I needed to strengthen it. I still stretch my back out a little bit, not too much though. Maybe I was doing it too excessively. That may have been my problem. But I realized now that I needed to strengthen it, and that's what's actually helped improve it. And I'm actually pretty much 100% better. Sometimes I just still get a little bit, lower back stiffness in the mornings, but that does eventually go out through the day, and after I exercise it, stretch it, strengthen it a little bit, it gets a bit better. But ultimately, it's been getting better every single day. And my plan to begin with to sort out my lower back was a weak one. But eventually it did lead me to the success because I had to take a fall or failure in order to realize what I was doing wrong and to figure out what worked. So sometimes you might see that if you can kind of apply it to your life and what you're doing. So, for example, you might have a plan on, let's say you want to become you want to have a successful blog, and you keep on writing articles, but let's say they're not doing very well, and then you get some inspiration one day to write something a little bit different, maybe in a different way. It doesn't have to be a different topic, but maybe you write something in a little bit of a different way. Perhaps you tweak the title. And that does really well. And all you've done is you've just made a few little tweaks here and there, and it's actually made your blog so much better. So you can see how that kind of can go through lots of different areas. You might just need to say something different. Let's say if you're a salesperson and you're making cold calls every day, it might be just you just need to change your approach a little bit. It's not like you're changing the goal, but sometimes you might need to change the plan. But even a mediocre or a weak plan can lead to success if you just stick at it, right? You don't have to have the perfect plan, because usually these things will work its way out anyway. You'll find out what the perfect plan is later on. You'll get new ideas, new better ways of doing things. So start out with a weak plan. It doesn't have to be a perfect plan. It could be even a bad plan, right? Perhaps you, for example, perhaps a bad plan is, oh, I'm going to make a video every month, when really you should be doing it every week, but at least you're still doing something, right? So it's all about that. It's all about tweaking your approach as you go along, finding out what works, what doesn't work. But in order to do that, you have to get started, even if you get started with a weak or mediocre plan. So the next point I want to make is, if you make a mistake, then learn from it and become better. So that's something that I learned with this lower back thing that I had. Stretching it and stretching my body wasn't enough. It wasn't what I really needed. I needed to strengthen my back as well. So I learned from that mistake of overstretching to, okay, I need to put in some strength and conditioning in as well, because that's not doing me any favors. Now, I'm quite good with lifting weights and things like that, and I do that sort of thing regularly, but I hadn't been doing anything with my lower back. I hadn't been strengthening the muscles in my lower back, and that's what I really, really needed to do. So that's been helping. That's something that I had to learn along the way, right? And this is the same for you and whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to achieve. You may make a few mistakes, you may get it wrong, but the point is that you learn from it, you grow from it, and you keep moving forward, and you tweak your approach if you need to, okay? So don't let a mistake derail you. Don't let a mistake make you feel awful about yourself. Just realize that it is what it is. You can't change it, but now you know not what to do, right? So now you can do or find something that does work, okay? And another thing about failure, and this is kind of the point that I want to leave you with, and that is, it's not a failure if you learn from it, right? So if you do take a big stumble, let's say you're on social media and you say the wrong thing and you get a lot of people hating on you or something like that, learn from it. Learn not what to do, and so you don't make the same mistake again. Grow and evolve. That can be applied to a lot of different things as well. So for example, let's say you call someone up. Let's say you're doing a cold call, and the other person at the end of the phone gets angry because you perhaps said something in a different way, that in a way that was, perhaps they took it the wrong way or something like that. Then that's not a reason for you to stop being a salesperson. That's not a reason for you to not call up anyone ever again. It's just that perhaps you said something and you know not to say that again. So when you do cold calls in the future, it doesn't happen again, right? So you learn from it and you grow from it, okay? And you evolve. And if you do that, if you learn from your mistakes, then you're not going to fail, and you shouldn't see it as a failure. You should just see it as a lesson. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.